My name is Renee Stock. I work at AHT Insurance. I am the practice leader of government contractors and technology, vice president of client services, which is a really fancy name for account executive. I've been with AHT for 15 years now, specifically dedicated to technology and government contracting. And I have 22 years in the business.
All right, my name is Deborah Walling. I'm with Diversified Insurance Group. I am an account executive. I've been there since 2012, and this year I celebrated my 20th anniversary in the business. Started through the ranks in personal lines and eventually discovered the wonderful world of commercial, focused mainly on technology and manufacturing, but I'm always interested in learning something new. And I think one of the great things about the role is that I do have that opportunity to dabble in other things.
I think the biggest change has been the lack of personal interaction with the clients, right? I'm not driving to their client site, flying to go to meetings. Everything has been Zoom. HT has been working with Zoom and Teams for quite some time now. And so we were very comfortable in transitioning to the online platform and getting comfortable. I think the challenge with Teams and Zoom is that you're seeing multiple little boxes on a screen. You can't sit in a client meeting and read, the indications of how they're leaning and what they're feeling. You can't shake hands. You can't have a side conversation with somebody at the table and kind of gain some rapport because only one person can talk at one time. So that's been the largest change from, I think, the producer and the account executive perspective, in my opinion.
And I would add to that I had been working as a telecommuter for about a year prior to COVID. So I saw the change a little bit differently, perhaps, than some people. For me, I was traveling from time to time, but otherwise working remotely. I think that Zoom has changed things a lot. And even though some things are beneficial, the ability to make eye contact, and as Renee said, you don't really get the full experience of being there. It's not a complete substitute. And we also, I think, need to be sensitive to different communication styles and preferences, even though we had these capabilities before, until things shut down and it just wasn't possible to travel and see clients. The conference call where you didn't have to look at each other was just as well in many cases. One of the things that I think is different now is that prior to COVID, whereas the occasional conference call was perfectly fine, where you didn't have to see anybody, now there is this additional expectation of presentation. And I think some people, clients included, get a little fatigued by it. We often, it's been proposed that we need to put a lot more into these presentations. And I think it's great when we can, if it adds to the experience, but otherwise I think it just adds to fatigue. A lot of our clients are also parents. They're having to do Zoom school. They're having to do all kinds of things during the day that they never had to before. So I think we need to leverage these technological tools for what they are, but also to realize the limitations and maybe even the stress or overwhelm factor. And so something we've been doing when we set up client conversations is to actually ask them, what do they prefer? Would you like to just do a phone call this time? Should we schedule a Zoom? For our internal meetings, even, we've tried to be very flexible. We encourage people to turn on their camera when they're talking, but it's also understandable that we don't need to be on film all the time.
Yeah, I think that Zoom fatigue is real. And I don't know about you, Deborah, but I feel like we have more meetings somehow, right? And they're back to back. We roll off one and go straight to another, roll off that, go straight to another. And the expectation a lot of times from the client perspective, at the very least, is to have your camera on and be presentable. And if you think about it from a normal course of business, in a normal day, we wouldn't have that experience, Deborah, because we're going to maybe one, maybe two, three, if it's a crazy day, client meetings in person, not 10 of them back to back to back all day long where you're constantly on. So that's also, I think, been a challenge as well.
I agree. And I'll even add a little bit more personal context to that. For me personally, I'm not somebody who spends a lot of time primping and grooming and, looking my best necessarily for those in-person client interactions. I want to look personable, professional, but I rely a lot on my voice, on my confidence, the way I present myself in a room. That's where I really excel. And I feel like in a lot of instances in Zoom interactions, those opportunities are taken away from me. And sometimes I can be a little insecure too. People can take a picture of the screen. They can zoom in. If I have something stuck in my teeth, it's really easy to get distracted about those things. And I'm getting better at it over time. I realize it was really no different being in the room with somebody. It was just harder for them to stare at me, I guess, without it being conspicuous.
Yeah. I hope that that's actually from a personal female perspective. I hope that's what we take away from this experience as well, is that, we can look professional, we can, look all put together, with maybe without the bells and whistles of nails and hair and makeup and such.
I'm not a television presenter. That's
Right.
A different job.
Coming as we are, right? We're here for our knowledge and our assistance and our expertise. So.
I think something that's worked well for me is that we've found new ways to work as a team in our office, leveraging things like Microsoft Teams, for example, which we had all along. We just weren't utilizing it as well, creating channels and various discussions. It's something that I'd like to work on even internally for our organization to go along with more of our content marketing, having dialogues kind of like this, but something more like a chat that you could publish into a blog. So I think it has helped me personally to connect better and to organize with the teams that I engage with, but also I see the potential to use it for marketing and other purposes. As far as things that have not worked, I think just expecting that things would go back to normal quickly. I think that there was reluctance at first to adapt to certain things like Teams, for example, which we had all along, because people thought, well, I didn't need it all this time. Why do I need to learn now? We're all going back to work in 2 weeks. So I think that the things that didn't work were things that we assumed we didn't need to learn because things would be normal again, rather than choosing to adapt.
Yeah, I had a colleague say that they are experiencing person-to-person, colleague-to-colleague interaction more now than they were sitting in the office, because at HT we have 5 floors, right? And so typically you run into people on the same floor, right, over and over again at the water cooler, etc. But I'm on the 2nd floor. I don't necessarily see people from the 4th floor all the time. And so we are having more Zoom, intentional Zoom and Teams meetings. I personally try to pick somebody once a week, twice a week, and reach out to somebody I just haven't talked to in a long time. Literally not for anything other than just to say, hi, how are you doing? I haven't worked with you recently. Do you need help with anything? You're looking to close a new business or something. Do you need a lift? And I think that's been different. It's maybe more intentional about whom I reach out to, and how. I know we're getting out at midterm to talk about market industry and the rates. So we're talking about rates are increasing, deductibles are increasing. The industry is really challenged right now. And so we do our midterm reviews and we talk about the CIAB report. Sometimes we'll reference Market Scout. So we'll talk about third-party vendors that are elevating the differences in rates. So we're working that into our discussion. So typically I will do an agenda, then a CIAB report, and then we'll go into a review. And I'll say, okay, remember how we referenced that umbrella is up 20%, right? So, I need for you to understand this when you're doing your projections for 2021. We need to contemplate that's not even worst case scenario for international clients. So what do your plans look like for 2021? Let's make sure that we set enough aside. I think our biggest challenge from a coverage perspective has been the D&O market. We're struggling, well, not struggling, but we're really challenged with finding solutions where we have high limits, like we used to have a 10 million D&O limit. We're having to go stack limits now and do a 5x of 5. It just takes longer. We have to send it out to market. There's just a longer time period before we can present terms to the client. So that for us has been a challenge, and we're just making sure that the clients understand the challenges that we're facing, so that they understand, yes, typically we present 1 month ahead of time, but we are now in the where we're presenting 2 to 3 weeks prior to the renewal versus 4 to 5 weeks as we would have in the past.
Everything about setting expectations, both in terms of pricing and some of the challenges that lay ahead. Something that I have always enjoyed, I'll back up and add another little personal layer here, but I come from a family of jigsaw puzzle enthusiasts. So I look at every account renewal a little bit like that, and look at the team kind of like my aunts and uncles and grandparents sitting around the table. And each person has a different strategy or preference for the way they like to attack it, whether it's the corners first or the edges or a certain motif or color. And my role, especially as often the youngest one at the table, was just to look for any way to get in there and what pieces will come together for me, and then to quickly allocate out the pieces I find if I observe, okay, this person's doing yellow, this person's doing the water, to kind of play to everybody's strengths on the team. And I think clients are kind of looking for that. And some of the opportunities I've been working on recently, they see a mess on the table and I see some pieces that go together. And I see some people on my team that this is their jam. This is what they do. Let's get this together. And often, no matter how big a problem looks, if you can find just 2 pieces that go together, you're working on a solution. And clients and prospects really value that in a big way. So I am a TechAssure fan, of course. I think one of the tools I use at least weekly, I like the AXCO reports. I love keeping on top of TechAssure Connect. I wish I interacted more than I did, but I enjoy all the interactions that I have. The broker referrals are fantastic. It's all great. I think it's only getting better. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to collaborate more, to share more best practices, templates, and but I enjoy just feeling like we're part of this community. I leverage it a lot in my conversations with clients, and I think it does give us in some ways a competitive edge that we have a diverse set of people that are independent in their businesses, but also we share these common goals and strengths, and we're only getting better.
I really enjoy the collaboration between the agencies and the teams. I'm working on a handful of things right now where I'm getting assistance from other brokers, where I just I don't know where to start here, or I have a question, or so either reaching out direct or through TechAssure Connect. I utilize the eRisk Hub almost daily, so I really utilize that quite a lot. And so that's something that is the most helpful to me outside of the relationships I've built.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how this conference comes together. I've seen a number of our clients pivot to this type of format and have heard some of the pitfalls and challenges. I think it's going to be something that's a part of the future. I'm, like many people, looking forward to in-person interactions again. Just can't wait to shake some hands. But I do think that there is a way to reach a broader audience through this format. And I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of this kind of supplementing the in-person interactions we have in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be an awesome platform. And I think it's posed for growth in the future. Garrett, because I know you probably want a little extra work. You know, it maybe it's possible to do in person plus shorter versions of these for some of the folks that can't travel, you know, as much as maybe the producers or the principals of a firm, and really kind of build the Tech Assure, you know, allegiance, so to speak.